The last day of school is always so exciting. I usually go around saying goodbye to all my friends, but this time I was so anxious to get home that I just sat on the bed, scrolling through my phone while the maids packed my bags. "Careful with those shoes," I reprimanded them. What? They were new. If they scratched them, they had to get me new ones. So what if they had to sell their kidney to do so? But before the story continues, make sure you like this video, subscribe, and push the notifications on our channel. Thanks! As the maids carried my luggage behind me, I knocked on every one of my friends' doors to say goodbye. We just hugged and kissed on the cheek, but I was very much looking forward to saying goodbye to one specific person. I went to the room next to the broom closet and knocked on the door. When the door opened, I walked right in without asking. Why should I ask? I have more of a right to be here than her. "Gretchen!" she exclaimed when she saw me. "Riley," I said unenthusiastically, scowling at her room. It looked poorer than ever. I asked her where she was going over the summer vacation, but of course she wasn't going anywhere. I spotted a fashion magazine under her bed and picked it up before she could stop me. "Ugh, why do you even try?" I asked her. Then I dropped it on the floor again and walked out the door, without really saying goodbye. I strolled over to the boys' living quarters and made my brother Danny hurry up. I couldn't wait to get home. One private jet flight later, my brother and I walked into our mansion where our parents were expecting us. They were jumpier than usual, and they were always sort of jumpy. I asked my dad if I could go ride my horse for a while before dinner, but he shouted, "No!" louder than it looked like he meant to. I could tell something was wrong, but I could have never guessed what it was. At dinner that night, in our favorite restaurant, my brother and I went full out. We ordered our favorite dishes, which were, of course, the most expensive ones. We always wanted the restaurant staff to know we were rich, just in case they dared treat us like normal people. My parents only got salads, though, which was also strange. My dad hated everything healthy. When the bill came, my dad took his credit card out of his wallet with a shaking hand and gave it to the waiter. He was fully red in the face and visibly sweating. I threw a napkin at him because I couldn't bear to look at him for one more second. The waiter came back moments later, saying the card was declined. My brother and I burst out laughing, and we thought our mother did too, until she pushed her chair from the table and ran off in tears. My brother and I gave each other a puzzled look. What just happened? My dad went off somewhere with the waiter, and when he came back, he hurried us to the limo, where our mom was already sitting, blotting her face with a handkerchief. "Kids, we need to tell you something." My mom's voice broke. She looked at my dad, and when he didn't speak, she nudged him with her elbow. He snapped back into reality, looked at us, then burst into tears. "We're broke," he cried. "We have absolutely no money." My brother and I were paralyzed. We asked him what he meant, and he said our accounts were all in the negatives. I started to feel faint, but my brother took an ice cube from the cooler and put it on my forehead. He held it there and tried to grasp what they were saying. My mom went on to explain that since around the time my brother and I were born, they had been spending money like royalty and borrowing from the bank and friends, but never paying back, thinking it was okay. Now all their debts caught up to them and we had no money left. "Well, I can get a scholarship, right? I can stay in my school?" I asked them before my dad said, "Oh, please, Gretchen, you're nowhere near smart enough," and shut me up. He was still blotting desperately at his sweating forehead. "Well, what are we going to do?" my brother demanded. My mom huddled closer to us and said she had a plan. We sat in Dad's study discussing the plan. "Are you sure this is going to work?" I asked them, and they said it would if we stuck together and communicated well. We couldn't afford to mess up, or who knows what would become of us. Around midnight, we arrived at my Uncle Bruce's house. He wasn't related to us, but we grew up with him. The pictures on both our houses were proof. Although right now, no one would recognize us thanks to the creepy animal masks we picked up at the dollar store. We snuck close to the wall surrounding his property. Before we took another step, my dad stopped us and silently pointed at the security camera. My brother got as close as he could, then took his paintball gun off where it was strapped to his back and shot it at the camera. He covered the lens in paint, and we were good to go. Danny kept covering the cameras with paint. We pretty much knew where they all were, so it was an easy job. We snuck up to the door of Uncle Bruce's luxurious beach house and opened it with a key. "Did you expect us to knock down the door or something? Please, we were family friends." He gave us a key and the code to his alarm. We deactivated it quickly and were free to take what we came for. Everything. We swept almost everything we could find off the tables and into our bags. We dug through closets and cabinets. We took everything that's shown even slightly. Bruce had so much jewelry and so many watches, each one worth a fortune. But we needed something else. We knew Bruce was richer than the stuff we were taking. We had a feeling there was more. We looked everywhere for some kind of trapdoor, some hidden room, somewhere where a rich guy can stash a fortune safely. I had to push Danny into Bruce's bedroom. He was terrified of Bruce's pet sharks. Yes, Bruce was that kind of rich. He had enormous aquariums instead of regular walls in his bedroom, and the aquariums were full of animals, including sharks. I pushed Danny in there, but he came out after 10 minutes, not having found anything. My dad was biting his nails so much that he almost had none left. My parents both grew more anxious by the minute, afraid that a SWAT team was going to burst in through the windows any minute. We felt defeated. We had a fortune in our bags, but there was more. We walked out onto the patio and felt the fresh ocean breeze. My family was debating our next move, so I walked over to the pool and dipped my feet in. It was a saltwater pool, so it smelled like the ocean. I thought I saw a shadow at the bottom. That's when I realized it was a different colored tile. "Guys, come look at this," I whispered loudly to my family. They rushed over and we looked like we had just won the lottery. I could almost see dollar signs in my parents' eyes. My brother took off his shirt and sweats, revealing swim trunks. He dove into the water silently. We expected no less. He was captain of the swim team at school after all. He quickly swam down to the bottom and removed the tile, then motioned at us to follow. We were robbing a beach house. Of course we had all swimsuits on under our clothes. We threw our clothes into a pile, then swam down. The water cascaded into a small room, then into a pipe that returned it to a pool. My mom and I went in first, then Danny, and last my dad, who struggled to fit his belly through the gap. His legs were wiggling like crazy. I had to pinch myself not to laugh. We were now in a small room, half of it occupied by a ginormous safe. "Anyone have the code for this?" my brother asked, but all of us shrugged. We looked at the possible combinations. The code had to be 8 numbers, which I guessed was somebody's birthday? But whose? Bruce didn't have a partner, and he had no kids. "I bet it's my birthday," I announced excitedly before putting in my birthday. A little light bulb on the lock beeped and lit up red. I frowned and crossed my arms before my brother strutted up to the safe and input his birthday. The lock beeped a nicer sound, and the light bulb lit up green. "He always says I'm the son he never had," said my brother, sticking his tongue out at me and opening the door to the safe. We took all the valuables out of the safe, though it had more shoes in it than we expected. Our bags were super heavy. I was waiting for my family to be done. When the room got darker, I looked up and almost fainted when I saw the underbelly of a shark swimming over us. "Why have you grown so pale, my love?" asked my mom, putting her hand on my cheek. With a shaking hand, I pointed upwards. My dad had to slap his hand over my mom's mouth to keep her from screaming. There were sharks swimming through our escape route. "What are we going to do?" my mom cried. We were all freaking out, but Danny had a plan. "I'll distract them," he said. "I'm the fastest swimmer. They won't get me, and you guys can swim out safely." Do you think any of us fought him on that? No. We were all okay with it. Danny hoisted himself up the little waterfall and into the pool. He swam around the bottom until the shark saw him. The pool was big, and he managed to swim circles around those beasts. My family and I swam out, each carrying our bag, but my mom was carrying hers and my brother's. We were all safe out of the pool when Danny looked up and swam toward us. He was just getting out when we were walking away when he screamed. I only saw his swim trunks floating in the water when I also screamed and covered my eyes. Danny smacked me in the forehead, so I opened my eyes and saw my brother in underwear with little hearts on it. My parents saw it too, and we started laughing at him. "What? I always wear something under my swim trunks. Remember that time they fell off in the middle of a competition?" he asked us, looking for sympathy. But we all just laughed harder. We put on our dry clothes quickly and then ran to the marina. We spotted Bruce's yacht super quick and hopped on. The fuel tank was full, so we sped out of there crazy fast. We sat estimating the amount of money we were gonna make when lights flashed over us. My stomach sunk because orange is so not my color. We did as they asked. It was better that way. They came down and put us all in handcuffs. They took us to the police station, and my brother and I had to sit in a jail cell while they figured out what they were going to do with my parents. The next day, we were woken up by keys jingling and opening our cell. We were given the few possessions we owned, which were really just our empty bags and masks. The police had called us a taxi to get home. My brother and I were underage, and they thought our parents had forced us to do the robbery, so we were released. When we climbed into the cab, we were surprised to see our dad. The driver almost threw us out 10 minutes later because we couldn't stop yelling at our dad and trying to hit him. "You're a coward!" Danny screamed at him. You see, he blamed everything on my mom. He said my mom was this manipulative woman who blackmailed us into robbing the mansion. All our accounts and property were under her name, so the debt was all hers. Danny was still yelling at Dad when I told the driver to take us to a certain address first. Dad and Danny didn't even notice when I got out at Bruce's house and came back with a small bag. They only noticed what I had done when we were able to buy a small apartment in a poor neighborhood, because I had stashed some cash and valuables in a tree and sold them. Before I sold them, though, I waved them in my dad's face. Who's not smart enough now, Daddy? A month later, we were settled into our new lives as peasants. Mom was off serving hard time. Danny and I were going to school and working. And Dad had landed a full-time job as a car salesman. I worked in a bookstore, which was so boring, I almost fell asleep every day. Being surrounded by nerds was the worst. The worst was when a particular nerd would walk in. The first time she did, she laughed in my face and I rolled my eyes. One day, I spotted Riley, the girl I used to bully, enter the library. She saw me and the poor job I had and dropped her stack of books on the counter in front of me. "Guess karma does come back to bite you," she said. I felt the need to apologize to her, but I didn't. I wasn't about to stoop that low. I did have to physically stoop low, though, because Riley spilled a strawberry milkshake on the floor, and I had to clean it up. She was right. I guess I got what I deserved.